Hello, my name's Robert Adams, and what I'd like to do is show you how we can make up this little motorbike here using our craft die here. So this tutorial will just take you through the basics for creating this lovely little bike. I've chosen this colour scheme. Remember, it can be anything that you like. This is just sort of a traditional colour scheme for this particular bike. Okie dokie, so what we do is start off by using our die. I'll show you here. And you'll notice it comes in two parts, and on the left here is what I call the chrome part, or the chrome pack. On this side we've got the main frame and all the rubber parts and everything that really cuts in black, and then in the middle we've got the wheel, which you'll do twice, so there's chrome in the centre for the spokes and black for the tyre, so that will need to be cut twice. And then we have the petrol tank here, which again you can use in any colour scheme that you like. The traditional one for this was a sort of a cherry red and beige, and that's the other part of the tank just sitting here. In fact, there's an identical one over there. I had two in and they just ended up on the die, but that's one of the same thing. And the mudguards at the front are here and here, and again you can choose any colour that you like. But in motorbike law, it should really match the main colour of the tank. But sometimes they have them in chrome for the American ones. It's really up to you. It's your preference. And nothing else to really look out for, except some of the bits look a little bit dinky, and I'll sort of talk about that in a moment if I can. Just coming back, there's one or two parts. You don't have to use everything. There's two of the rear suspension units here, so one will cut out in black and be on the bike. This one I just put in chrome because you could use parts of it in chrome if you wanted, or put the whole thing in chrome. It really just depends how realistic you want it to look. And there's a little front brake here, this one with a little hole out of it so it embosses rather, and that's really an optional extra. To be honest, I left it out of mine. I'd need to really shim that a little bit there to get the best out of this kind of tiny embossing, but it did have a larger front disc brake on the bike, and you could put that one on if you wanted to. Okay, so those are the main parts just to talk through on the die, and in true style I've gone ahead now and I've cut out all the bits that I need, and they are here ready to use. So I put all the black into one pot here, and then the chrome parts in here, and all the little bits are popped in, so when you need them you might have to root around, but you know that these tiny little bits should be in here somewhere. And then I've cut my tank and my mudguards, and I've done the little side bit of the tank, the second colour, which in this instance is beige. And that's my front brake there, and I really needed to cut that again if I could, to get a little bit more detail, shim it just to get a little bit of detail of where the brake lever and everything was, but that's an optional extra. But hey, I'll tell you what, I'll stick it on just to show you, and then you can decide when you do yours. Just coming back to what I call the black parts here, the main frame and the rubber, really anything that's dark, all the rubbery bits are in here. I've kept these just in my card here, and talking of card, usually 250 GSM is fine. I had a 350 GSM, it's really thick, but it does make for quite a nice strong base from which to work on here. Remember, these dies will happily cut up to 400 GSM quite easily. So these are the dark parts, as it were, here, and I just left those little ones in there just because it all dropped out, and they will come out with ease, but I thought great, and rather than rooting around, it's quite nice that it stays there. So that's really the only reason it's like so. But get rid of the waste there so I don't get confused. Basically everything's here and we are good for go. And what I suggest we do is just start off and build everything up on the bike separately from where you want it, because then you can place it anywhere on your card that you want. And in order to do that, if I just flip this over here and get those out of the way, I can just show you the back of my bike here. And you can see it's not as pretty as the front, but what I've done is built up with bits of tape, and I've used the Maggi tape here, or the clear tape, to hold bits in places, and then some of the elements are glued on from the other side. Now this obviously is a side no one's ever going to get to see, but I find it's great to work like this, because what it does do is give me this lovely little bike, and then I can place it on the card if I want to change it or whatever. I haven't built it already and then committed it into place. This gives you the freedom to really just enjoy, you know, putting it wherever you want to on the card afterwards. So that's what I would suggest, but you can do everything that I'm going to show you in this demonstration by having it in place on the card. So you know, that it's up to you however you want to do it, but I'm going to show you this method because I think in the long run it just gives you a little bit more flexibility. Now I'm going to start with the back wheel. You're going to make up two wheels anyway, so I'm going to do the back one first, but I'll build up both using exactly the same technique. And you will have cut out the tyre, and then that one literally just slots in like so, very satisfying. But what we're going to do is just reverse everything over. So to hold it into place, I'll just pop it down there, pop it in like this. My black card's a little bit thicker than my Miri board, so what I'm going to do here is use a little bit of tape, just cut that near enough. I can always come back and trim it afterwards, and just put a little slither in there just to start holding everything into place. It's sticking over slightly, but that's great, it's holding it down. And again, I'll just take a little bit of this, trying to avoid it, oh, it's fiddly stuff, just trying to avoid going through the spokes because it's easier to cut it out if it's gone over the edge, I find anyway. So just sort of north, south, east and west of it, or a compass, and just pop a few bits on there like so. That will hold it all in place. Remember, ultimately you're going to glue this, so it's not overly critical, and once it's glued into position you'll be absolutely fine. But you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just placing that down like so, just to hold everything into position, and then I'll pop this up like so, flip it over, and you can see there, that's my tyre. And the next thing to do is just to take off the excess. To be honest, if you're a bit cleverer than me, you could probably cut it so it's a little bit neater. Whoops. And so what I'm going to do at this stage is simply use my scissors and I just angle in underneath like so, and just cut off the excess, either with scissors or with your craft knife. There might be little bits showing, but honestly, when you stick that down on the card, because this becomes invisible when it presses, it's not such a problem. There we go. My problem is actually seeing what I'm doing. And again, if you want to, another alternative technique is just to use your craft knife with a sharp blade, but and just go round and trim it all up. You don't have to be too fussy. There we go. And so I'm going to go on now and do exactly the same technique here for the other wheel. So I'm going to end up with two wheels, which are quite useful on the motorbike. So the next thing to do is to attach that to the frame. And I'll just bring the frame into shot here. And there we go. That's our bike frame there. And so what we're going to do is have this frame going on top of the back wheel like so. And it's just a case of measuring by eye. Now what you can do if you want to is just pop a little hole through the center dot there and just make sure that it goes in and roughly goes in to the center part there if you want to. So you could just put that through there and just line everything up, the two holes, if you want to glue everything super accurately. What I'm going to do is not glue it super accurately, and if I just bring that back into shot there, my first thing to do is just pop a little bit of glue onto the back part here, just to use that as a base to stick with, not too much glue, and then just pick that up and line it up. I can almost see where the holes go, and I find it just touches under the frame there and just comes down there, and that's pretty well in the middle, and just give that a second to stick there. So that tyre and wheel now sit behind the frame. Now for the front one, we're going to do a similar technique, but first of all we've got to get our suspension unit in, and that looks like this. That's the front fork, and again a little bit of glue on here, Spreading this quite as accurately as I'd like, and that just lines up with what we call the head here. So I'll just stick that down, and you can see there's some lines. You just line it all up roughly into position, a little bit of pressure, and let that dry, and that comes up to the top there, and then our front wheel's going to just sit underneath there. So we'll come back and just pop the front wheel on, and then we're ready to go now. Our front wheel's sitting here, and that will just sit underneath there like so. Now at this point you can, prior to gluing that with the front wheel, put the little disc on to there. You can see that's going to look like the brakes. But in this instance, I'll just leave it off now for the moment because it looks quite decorative. Now what I find quite useful, I'm using my board here. If I just move this up from the camera a bit, to get the wheel right, if I put that there and line it up on a line so that we know that it's in the right position, can you see, like so, and that's touching on the white line there. So I just move the wheel until it's in the right position like that, and then I know that it's going to be sitting properly. It's not going to look like a chopper or something like that. And again, what we can do at this stage is turn this over and put a little bit of glue just along that part there, so it's going to stick down onto the tyre when we're ready. So again, lining up here on that part, that onto there, be a little bit of wiggle room if we want it. Where it goes, I'm just seeing it's covering a spoke there, but that really doesn't matter. Down it goes, and that's stuck on there, but near enough is good enough. On it goes. A little bit of glue's come out, so at this stage, because it's mirror board, it works quite well. I'm just going to dab that off with a bit of tissue, just hold that down, and there we go. That's our bike starting to come together, looking quite nice. Okay, the next thing to do now is just begin with the other parts, really, and we can just start building this up bit by bit. It's really up to you on the choice. What I'm going to do next is on the back here there's a little suspension unit, and I'm going to just use my craft knife here. Again, this one's in mirror board, so a little bit of glue onto there, and in this instance I'll just do it all in silver, but you could, if you wanted to, change that. And I'm just going to rest that over onto my cutting mat. I'm going to try to rest it on my cutting mat. What I'm going to do is just pick this up with my craft knife like so, and then that can just, you'll see the outline there, which is quite nice. Everything's outlined for you, and just pop that into position. Lovely. And if I look in my little pot, I've got a tiny little bit of silver here, so what's probably easier is to put a dab of glue there and pop this over. And if I again just use my craft knife just to ease that into position, you'll see the lines on the bike. It's sort of outlined for you, and again a little bit of pressure and that's glued in there. That's looking nice. Okay, so probably the next thing to do is just pop the engine in. It's as easy as that. So what I'll do, again, if you just place the engine there, you can see where the frame is and everything. So a little bit of glue down here just to hold it into position. Some of the black will show above, so don't go too high. And that will now just sit like so. I just have it so it's sitting nicely within the bike there. Again, you don't have to be too accurate with this. That's just, you know, near enough is good enough. You can see that sitting in there, a little bit of silver lining up there. Everything fits in nicely, pretty good. So it's coming together, and it's a nice thing with this. I love doing it. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. It's very, very simple. We just build it up a little bit at a time. Okay, I think the next thing to do will be our exhaust pipe, and that, if I show you here, will just sit like so, and it comes onto the engine at the top up there. So we can put a little bit of glue on the back part and a little bit on the frame, and then I'll flip it over and put a little bit of tape to hold it on. So just having a look, a little bit of glue here, and a little bit of glue on the frame just to hold it as it goes up. And I think that probably see me how I want to go, so I'll just quickly slide it into position. It wants to be sticking out of the engine like so, about there. So I've come off a little bit from the black there, but that doesn't matter. There's enough glue and a little bit holding it there. And again, at this stage, if you've got a little bit too much glue, I'm just using some kitchen towel just to get in there, but it will dry clear anyway. Now the exhaust pipe is just free to move at this stage, so what I'll do is pop a little bit of tape on the back, if I just flip it over, just to hold it into position like we've done before. That said, I'm really being a little bit overzealous probably. If I just slice a little corner off here like so, and again I was using my craft knife to negotiate and maneuver a little bit of tape and stick that on there. That's just to stop it flapping about. In reality, you can see the glue's going to hold it quite well. I could slip a wee bit more in there, not necessary. And there we go, that's it. It comes together quite quickly, I find. Now that's that part in there. We can go on and build the rest of it, and if I just bring the other one back into shot, we've got a kickstart, a footrest, and then we've got the gear lever here. And I just put, there's a little bit of spare silver. If there's anything left over, I've just popped a little bit of, I just cut it out and made it look like a wheel nut on there, just to spruce up the back a little bit. There's a hole down here you can see, and that's where it would go, just in the center, to be the wheel nut going through. And that was, to be honest, just fabricated out of one of the spare bits. I cut so many bits of the silver one, having dropped some on the start, I just used a little bit of extra mirror board for that. So the next thing to do is perhaps just build up the rest of those elements there. And if I just come back to my pot, if I use the kickstart lever, so again a little dab of glue just at the base here, and you'll see a little hole there. A hole, it's an impression that's on the casing. You could use that as a guideline, and I just stick that down like so. And again, with a bit of pressure, the glue's coming out on the mirror board. It's easier to dry it off now, as it were, and wipe it away. But you can, when it's all glued and firmly in position, just take it off at the end if you want to. So then we have a kickstart itself. That's a rubber part, and that I've got living in this bit here, and it's that one which is sort of, there'll be a little bit of texture on it. And I'm losing my spare. By the way, if you wanted it, you could have mixed and matched colours with the back suspension there. And just about to drop out is my suspension unit. So a little bit of glue in this nook that it's going to sit into. Flip it over with my craft knife. Rest that down there. As it cuts, you get a beveled edge, so I'm just trying to get the nice beveled edge, and that will just slot into there like so. Pop it into the glue, hold it for a few seconds, and that's nicely in position. And again, a few dabs just to clean up any stray bits of glue as we go along, but those can be done afterwards if you want to. So we've got a few other little bits of rubber in here. The larger one, that's the twist grip, that's going on the top. One of these is the footrest and one is the gear lever. It's really up to you. It's not, they're so tiny, it doesn't matter too much, but they go here. So the slightly longer one should be the footrest, I think. So I will pop that like so into the glue. And again, there's a little gear lever at the front, so just a dab of glue there, and that becomes my gear lever. So those are the important parts of the bike built and put together for us. Okay, so what next? I'll tell you what, there's a rather nice little strip of chrome that sits along the seat here, so I'm just again with my glue just put a little dab of glue along here, and that will just hold that strip in, and that one, again, I'll just reach over and grab that. Now the pot looks like this. It's this long, slightly curved silver one here, and that sits on the seat like so, just runs underneath and just comes up to the tank area there. Again, a little bit of pressure to let that glue. And once more, at this stage, if you want to, you could rub off any of the excess glue. This kind of flakes away when it's dry and is clear. But I'll just sort of work cleanly as I go along. Okay, you can see how quick this is. It really does come together quite fast. The next thing I'd like to do, I think, is the tank. So again, I'll just get my parts reaching across there. You can choose any colours that you like. At this stage, this was a bike I used to own years and years ago. And I'm going to just pop a little bit of glue on there. And you could use tweezers. I'm just using my craft knife. You'll see that will fit beautifully over the existing shape. And a little bit of pressure, that pops into there. Now a little dab of glue in there, and that's to hold that second part of the panel, which looks like this, and that just slots in. That's our two-tone tank, and there we go, that just slots in there like so. If you press it in, this is quite, I've really magnified this on the camera, but there's a tiny little bit of black line, so I just pop it in, that squeezes in, and they're a perfect match, the shape, so that will go in there. Now you'll notice on the black we've got a little indent on the tank, so that's just to show you where the rubber knee grips go, and that looks like this. Sorry, I'll just pick that up on my craft knife and just place that into position there. Now we also have on the tank a little bit of silver that just sits along there. That's actually the logo, the bike logo, and that is in the chrome pack, and it's this funny one here. You can see a slightly different shape just to represent it there, and there we go. I see. So like a big kid, I get really excited about this. I just think it's such good fun, and it does come together, as I said, pretty quick. Okay, what else have we got to do? We've got a petrol tank on there. Now you can, a petrol tank, that is the petrol tank. We've got a cap that can go on, and there's a couple of techniques. I'm just going to put a few little dobs of glue on there and pick up from my chrome pack here and just rest that. I just want it kind of coming over the tank as well. So at the moment I'm just going to flip that over and just pop that like so, and that creates the top part of my tank there, with a little bit coming up, so it's sitting just slightly proud. There we go. And I think now, really, having done that, the next thing to go for is the handlebars, and they are the funny little hook shape. But before I put that on, I just put some glue on here. Excuse me, I'll just go and pick this up on my craft knife. Bring that over, and that's going to sit quite high up, just up here on the top of the forks there, and then I've got a little bit of a twist grip to go onto that as well. So I'm going to just let that dry a little bit before I come back and do that. But while that's drying, I can just carefully flip this over, put a little bit of glue on here, bring that back, and then just slide underneath my headlamp like so, and that can just, again, just get the bike straight. Just think of it sort of shining into the distance about halfway, a little bit of pressure, and then just use my kitchen towel here just to take off the excess off the silver before it sets. That's sticking to the board as well, so I'm just going to free that up, just move that into position, and I just want to bring that down so it's straighter there. Don't want it to fail its MOT. Okie dokie, that's all doing its bit there. As I said, just let that dry a little bit more, and I probably should have moved the tank over slightly. It should have been upright, so I don't know if it will let me move it, but I'm just going to take a little bit off from there with my knife, because I've got to get the handle in. I don't want it touching. There we go, that's fine, just cutting into it slightly. So I've just taken a little bit off there, and the larger shape here, and you can see a little indent in it, that's the twist grip. So I'm just going to pop that out and put a dab of glue, not too much, on the end there, and with my craft knife I'm just chasing this handlebar grip, and it goes with the bigger part. Oh, it's being awkward. There we go. The bigger part uppermost, and that will just stick onto it there. I think I've rushed it a bit. The glue isn't quite ready for it yet, but it's there. Look, that looks lovely. That's stuck on there. You can obviously take your time. Just little bits that are a bit more sensitive might take a few seconds to dry. Do you know what? We're nearly there. The next thing we've got are the mud guards, and again, these will just fit underneath, and we'll probably find it's best to now at this stage just flip everything over, and then we can just work from the back for our mud guards. We can put a bit of glue here. If I just do the front one, again, that will just hold it into position. And I'm working back to front. The mud guard will hug the tyre, but I want it to come round a little bit, so it's lowish and sitting a little bit at the top, because I've got a little black bar that kind of matches on it there. So there we go, stick that on, and that will hold into position there. And for the back, we've got the mud guard. You can see it kind of sits up into position there. So let's just flip that over. At this point, we could probably use a little bit of tape just to hold that into position. With the tape in position there, whoops, let me just clear the decks. And again, I'm just going to slightly pierce it with my blade here, and I can just maneuver this now up, right up against the seat, sitting onto the tape. Just move it so it doesn't touch the wheel. There's a natural way that it wants to go anyway. Whoops. Oh dear, oh dear. I'm making this look worse than it is. There we go. Touch down and just pull that apart slightly, and a little bit of stick. And there we go. That keeps the back part there. Now that it's roughly in position, I can just maneuver it slightly like so. Can you see now? And I've got a little bit of gap there against the back, and if I want to, I can just move it up slightly with my tape, but it's pretty much there. There we go. Don't know why I made that look so difficult. You can see now the bike really does come together quite nicely. Just move my handlebar up a little bit. That should have waited till it dried a little bit more. And the bike's pretty well there now. That's probably most of it done. A few other things we can do. Again, I'm going to flip it over in a second. I've got a headlight, so let's, whoops, stick that back on there. Let's pop a little bit of tape. Again, just sticking over onto the light like so, and I'll flip that over. A bit ham-fisted with this tape. It's sticking to everything, including myself, and I'll pick that up, and the blue part just fits on the front there. There's a little bit of a pattern to it as it embosses, and you can see this tape will just hold it into position. Now I've gone a little bit overboard, so again just cut the excess out with my craft knife like so. Remember, in essence, what we're doing is making this so it can be stuck down onto a card. This is sort of semi-temporary. It actually is quite strong with the tape, but it's going to give us the opportunity of just moving everything around if we want to. Now, last but not least, there is a little rack. There's a couple of things to go on here. There's a little rack that you can put on the top if you want to, and that you can see is here. And again, I've just put a little bit of tape to hold it, and that can go on the tank. So what we've got now is a few other little bits and pieces, and there's some little bars that go across. If I can just get some glue out here, whoops, perhaps a bit too much. And that bar just comes across like so and just sits up there like that. Again, I can take some of the glue off, and there's another one that holds the front mud guard, and that comes onto the lower part of the wheel here. So a little bit of glue on that and a little bit across the wheel. That will hold everything together as well. Incidentally, it's on the what I call the rubber part, as it were, the darker parts, and I had to cut these twice. There's one on there, and I just cut it twice. If you're a real aficionado of these, they change the models. This is a late 58, 59 bike, and sometimes they were in chrome, so it just depends what you wanted to use on that. And we're pretty well there. I will go back. I said I've just missed the last little bit up there, so I'm going to cut that and stick it on. And a little bit of whatever I've got that's left over that I can use to put in there. And in fact, I've got a little bit of the mud guard here. So what I'm going to do is just stick a little bit of glue onto there, if it will come out, and put my sort of little nut. I could cut that a little bit more accurately, but just put that as a little bit of silver onto the back. So that's any old spare bit that you've got that you can use just to create a little shape in there, either a circular or nut shape if you want to, just to finish off another little bit of detail. And there we go. In essence, that's our bike done. Okay, crafting confession time. I've got the frame bit here, the little bit that goes onto the tank, and I'll probably do that from the other side. There's a little bit of tape to hold it, but I've just removed the petrol tank, so I've realised the petrol tank, the cap, if I just pop a bit of glue, I'm going to show you, because I put the wrong bit on. I thought it looked a bit big, and I'm going to show you the right part here, which is this tiny little silver one with a few indentations to make it look like a petrol cap. And again, I'll just move that up to the top and just slightly over the tank. Okay, so that's now the proper one at the right size. Okay, so what was that part, I hear you ask? And I've got a little bit left over. Second thing, I'll show you what that was going to be for. If I just pop that out there. Now, I did have, to make it fully road legal, a speedometer which sits kind of there-ish if you want to put it on. So that's the base part of the speedo's there, and if you forgive me, that was kind of the chrome top to it, just sitting like so. But I'll put it on there, and I haven't done it in the main one. I just thought it looked a little bit big and a little bit, I don't know, perhaps a little bit OTT, but I forgot to mention that those are the spare bits there. And so that bigger one isn't the petrol cap, it's that one with a little, it'll it'll cut out with kind of little gnarly bits, and that's supposed to look like the petrol cap there, and it's far more in keeping with the bike. Okay, so the next thing to do is just stick this on, and if I come back to my original here, you can see I've put a bit of tape. So the easiest way, again, is to just get that into position, flip it over. I think tweezers might be useful at this point. I'm just going to use my knife there and that's the tank. So is the tank, I'm getting it right. Cut a little bit of tape off just to hold everything into position, because this is the clear or Magi tape. If it remains showing, it's not the end of the world, so it's roughly about there-ish, and it's only to capture that and hold it into position. And if I move that up to roughly where that is there, and then just capture it, and then just capture it, he said. It's quite thick, this black card, and I've got the tank on there, so I'm struggling. I'm back to front really, so that technique may or may not work for you. I tell you what, it's probably easier to put the tape on the back and then just line this up like so into position. It just sits there on the tank. It was a little a carrier you could strap things through. I don't know what it was. In real life it's quite big, and it looked like a little, like the old-fashioned on the convertible cars, the little roof, not roof rack, a little boot rack or something. It was just a tank rack, and I used to just keep spare gloves and bits and pieces wrapped around there, spark plugs and spanners, because 20-mile journey could be quite an event. My old bike. And I'm just, while I've got my craft knife here, all I'm doing is, while I've got my craft knife here, all I'm going to do is just cut out some of the spare bits of tape there. Could have perhaps been a little bit more careful in my application of it, but it doesn't matter. I said that will disappear anyway when it's put down. And there we go. And there we go. Everything in position. That's our bike all put together. I think that looks really nice, and ready to now be picked up and placed anywhere on your card that you want. Remember, on the website I've given you some free downloads for backgrounds for the bike as well, and we'll have some cards on the gallery soon as well, just to give you a little bit of inspiration for it. Now, it really is quite quick and easy to make. A few things with the filming, I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way, line everything up. I'm acting as cameraman as well today. I'm not making excuses, but I'm doing a little bit of everything, so I wasn't concentrating as much on the crafting, so I hope I haven't made it look too fiddly, because really it isn't. It doesn't take long to do. Once you've done the first one, understand all the bits that go, honestly it just falls together really quickly. And you can change the colours if you want to on the tank and mix and match and do whatever. That's just my serving suggestion. That's the classic colours there for this particular bike, and easy to make, looks lovely, and I think whoever receives it is going to absolutely enjoy this card. Okie dokie, I hope you've gleaned something from this tutorial, and good luck with your crafting. Bye bye.